So Donald Trump's crazy tariff trade war is now reaching historic levels. Check out this headline. Donald Trump's tariff blitz brings U.S. levies to highest levels since the 1930s. And this headline really caught my attention because I was thinking maybe Trump sitting in his office is like, that Great Depression, I can do better. I do greater. In fact, I could do the greatest depression of all time. So you never know what Trump's thinking. And it feels like we're in this weird timeline where every 100 years you got to have some crazy event that send the world spiraling. And that's sort of where we are. It's from the Yale University Budget Lab. And they're saying, hey, after that recent EU announcement or framework of a deal, or whatever you want to call it, the effective tariff levels, what they call it, is 17.3%. So again, after the EU deal, effective tariff level 17.3%. And that compares to the 1930s when it was at 20%. Now, this doesn't necessarily reflect the exact cost of all the stuff going up at Walmart, say 17%, but this gives you an idea that things are going to go up. And last time we did this kind of stuff, again, was Great Depression. Trump has engineered a new era of U.S. trade protectionism that will eventually reverberate through the entire global trading system. And I'm here in Korea, if you guys know, Busan. It's on our news every single day. I also talk with you guys about this stuff on YouTube, and I like to give you different perspectives. And I want to show you this. So this is a fascinating chart from the Wall Street Journal, and they basically show all the different countries that Trump has been threatening, essentially, moving tariffs up and down. You got China, Canada, Mexico, Taiwan, EU, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, UK. You can see it's like all sorts of countries that were affected. And if you know, EU is 27 also, right, in the EU, 27 countries. So many people on the planet have to deal with this crazy madness. On top of that, you got Japan, who is playing the Trump thing pretty interestingly. Just don't think Trump is necessarily cheating all the other countries. Like, we can see it live on TV the same way you can. We can see Trump's tweets. Everyone knows he's crazy, right? But you do have to deal with it. But you handle it in a different, everyone handles it in a different way. So in Japan's point of view, Trump was telling everyone it's going to be $550 billion that Japan will invest in USA. And I question all along, does Japan even have said money? Even if they did, would they want to invest it all in the USA? And it turns out maybe not. It was funny because it ends up being, and I'll show you guys a bit here, it could only be 1 or 2% of that $550 billion that Trump's been touting. Only 1 or 2% of that money may be an actual investment. The rest could be loans and loan guarantees. And so effectively, maybe an American company will borrow the money, and then Japan will make money on the interest, right? Money on the loan. Or Japan could bury people who apply for the loan in the paperwork, right? And it could be like really slow to get said funds. So, again, slow walking. And the trade person for Japan, Akazawa, even said, we could even slow walk this thing for 3.5 years. And he didn't say specifically that then Trump is gone and forget about it, but he kind of implied that we could just slow walk this stuff. I thought it was pretty funny. Here in Korea, I'll just say I've been really impressed with how the Koreans are handling it. I want to show you guys this. They show Lutnick and Trump all the time. They show you exactly who they are. On Korean TV, Lutnick comes across as like a real used car salesman kind of person. And how can I say, culturally, the way Lutnick talks, he's kind of awkward in America, but he comes across really awkward here in Korea. And then they also talk about Trump as being like, that's a word to say it. They say that Trump makes decisions on his own. Like we actually, show that in our news. Or they'll talk, when Trump says, the tariffs are going to be this, the tariffs are going to be that. And we start comparing to, other countries. And so the point I'm trying to say is that because the way Trump is doing this stuff, it's all, public, all the tweets and stuff like that. And so it's not like a one-to-one where you have secrets. It's more like USA versus everyone else. And everyone can see like what your cards are. We literally see what they're doing. And so like, that's why I'm showing you guys this stuff. You can see it. We can see Trump golfing. We see his advisor people. The whole thing's insane. There's Trump there first. You can see like, they don't portray him as like tall and stuff like that. They show him just like sitting and like slouched down. So it's the Korean way of making fun of Trump, right? You can just see right there like how he's portrayed. But they do show and educate audiences here in Korea. It's very, very different than American news. So for example, right, UK 10%, Indonesia 19, Vietnam 20, Japan and EU now at 15, and Philippines at 19% talking about tariffs. And so then in the Korean news, we're like, okay, where's our thing going to be, and what kind of deal can we strike? Now, Korea has a very different history than other countries, and in fact, I would want to point this out. They're actually really fighting corruption. That's been something that's been on the news a lot. Just a couple days ago, South Korea police raid HYBE offices over ongoing stock probe. Now, why am I bringing up the corruption thing? Is because when we can see on a daily basis here in Korea that Trump is wildly corrupt and his advisors are obviously, incompetent, and we're fighting, corruption. Like, you guys see what I'm saying? Like, we're used to detecting that kind of stuff. So that's actually been inspiring money to move to Korea. It's actually been pretty interesting. This is also headlines a couple days ago. Global money chases world's hottest major stock market in Korea. And so that's what's been going on. It's like we just see more money coming in, more confidence here. And I've been really impressed again with how the Koreans are handling this stuff. Here's some more. They lately they've been talking about, and whenever one of the trade people comes off the plane, he's like inundated with reporters. Hey, what's going on? What they say? Are they as crazy as they say on the news? But they've been actually talking a lot about shipbuilding these days. So that's probably going to be the key levers that the Koreans are going to play. Let me show you guys a little bit here. This is cars. They've been talking about that quite a bit. Look at the Japan, look at EU. How are cars going to compete? And so then they started kind of, there's ships, cars. They talk about chips, all kinds of stuff. So for example, yeah, this is the chart here. You can see it's cars, and this is like products that go into the USA. So Korea and Japan sends cars there. Or you can take a look at, chips. You're talking about Korea and Taiwan, or batteries. Korea and Japan do that. And then the ship thing is what they're highlighting here is like only Korea does that. I think there's China's ahead of Korea in terms of shipbuilding, but Korea's pretty sizable. And we even had a member in the community was talking about that stuff, also saying that the way Korea does shipbuilding, it's like Lego way. So you can build the various parts kind of at the same time and then put it together, and you can just do it faster. It requires a lot of training of your people, and also investment from the government. And that's something that the USA decided not to do. And so for Koreans, this has been a point of leverage. So this has been what it is. Make America shipbuilding great again. And it's been pretty funny because essentially, guys, is what I'm trying to get across here is that Koreans do their homework. They show you clearly who these people are. You want to know who you're doing business with, who you're negotiating with, and sort of how I started to say, either gets their goat or makes them smile or whatever. And I think this sort of presentation of like, appealing to Trump's and Make America, great again, theme could actually be really quite successful. So that's why I've been really impressed with, how targeted this thing is. In terms of the stuff they could do, we're talking about like subs and aircraft carriers, all sorts of ships, cargo ships, talking about, building, repairing, servicing. I think drones are in this stuff as well. This is the talk of the where we are, who else makes ships. China does 70% of the ships. Korea does 17%, and Japan does 5%. So actually China is a major player, but obviously the USA isn't going to have China build ships for them. Obviously for national security reasons, I'm sure you know. And then this has actually been really interesting also. They've been talking directly on how do the tariffs affect the American consumer. So this is something that the news does in Korea that the American news doesn't do that well. Frankly, they don't call out Trump's lies enough. The biggest lie that Trump tells these days is that other countries are going to pay the tariff. So on the Korean news, they actually show, okay, we have these products in USA and Americans are going to pay more, right? That's essentially what it boils down to. And so the concern is what happens to the price of Korean cars in USA. And they actually directly compare a car. This was the Palisade, I think that's Hyundai, against the Toyota Highlander. And, they're basically saying, with the tariff in place, will the Korean cars be competitive anymore, right? They also are talking about this. I'm showing you guys sort of what we're talking about here. This is a chart of different countries, manufacturers, and if they build them in USA or not to avoid the tariff. So, for example, this is Japan's Honda. I guess they build 65% of the Hondas in USA for US market there. That one would be Japan's Toyota. 49% of their cars are built in USA. Germany's BMW, 48% are built in USA. And then that would be Germany. Benz, 37% were built. So actually, I'd be curious, people in Germany, if you've been hearing about Mercedes' point of view on this stuff. And then you have Hyundai, and they're saying like, and Kia, that's sort of together, 35% of their cars are built in USA. And so that's the question is, what the tariff levels come in, is it worth it for us, the Koreans, to build, factories in the USA, essentially? Part of what's going on too, I think the Koreans are looking at from an investment point of view, which is what an investment is like, okay, if I put money into said thing, is it going to end up being profitable? And that's why I mentioned the Japanese thing before, to where like, hey, we're going to make money on the loans. But the Koreans, though, like they're getting really particular on like which companies could possibly invest and like how much they can invest, etc. And then locally here in Korea, this was the headlines recently. Seoul's average apartment price tops $1 million. So effectively, price of housing is really expensive. People concerned about jobs. So there's some political pushback of like, hey, why are you shipping jobs overseas? However, there's also some political sort of positivity to where, hey, we can invest in America and expand our market share. And then you have the business opportunities that Koreans could take advantage of, because remember, an investment in USA is just that, an investment. If it's going to pay off, actually for Korea, it could be really beneficial. So recently, K-pop demon hunters have been really, really popular in USA. So why not expand animation studios or whatever? Also, you may not know this, but Kia and Hyundai have a lot of models here in Korea that aren't in the USA. This is one example. This is the K8, which I just saw yesterday. It's a pretty nice car. And the price comes in like really cheap, actually, under 30, not that much, to be honest, that maybe in dollars. You're not getting it in the USA now, but you never know. If Trump's encouraging the Koreans or other countries to invest more in USA, you may see more Korean choices. And then you have farming protests over here, which is really interesting as well. So remember, the Trump is trying to sell a bunch of food, around the world, etc. Well, local farmers here in Korea are protesting. So this is they're like, we got to protect our industry, protect our local farmers. In the protest, they actually laid down local food, and then they'll do these kinds of things. It's really, effective. Apples, rice, meat, and potatoes. And it's like, hey, what about our food? Our food are pretty good. What about our farmers? Our farmers, are great as well. And we don't necessarily need to take American products. So this is again, a farming protest. These are local farmers, and just like, what about us kind of stuff. And I just want to show you guys, because oftentimes the way the Trumpers or the MAGA people talk, they act like they're the only, workers in the world, the only country in the world, the only companies in the world. No, there are other places out there. And so these are all like American protests right now in Korea. You don't see that much in the news. And then the Korean, essentially, politicians forced to go on TV and say, we're going to protect our farm workers. Don't worry, we got your back, that kind of stuff. Because this issue has actually come up before. This is in the past. These are prior protests. The farmers get really creative. They even bring cows to their protests. They even have like this, basically a cow flag. You can see it, right? But this is the farmers. Like they represent their industry, which I totally understand, completely understand. And I'm honestly, I'm in full support, because I don't want American food either if we don't have to take it, because just, Korean food is really good. I'm just telling you the truth. And we get a lot of food from other countries as well. You can get food from Vietnam. We can get food from Australia. Otherwise. So this is another one with the guy wearing a mask. And then this is some of the stuff that we're talking about in our news, whether or not, the American, they're trying to sell us older cows that may be more susceptible to mad cow disease. So this stuff is like serious for us. I know that you don't see this kind of stuff, on the American news, the way that they portray it, be it Lutnick or Besson or Greer, they'll be like, oh, or Trump, he'll be like, oh, why don't the Koreans, or why don't the, people in Europe, why don't they take our products? And they just, well, why do they care about safety so much? Who cares about safety? Just take our products. And, like places like here, like we take food safety, like really, really, it's really, really serious. The same way that in Australia, which I showed you guys in another video, that people in Australia take this stuff very seriously. Or, you want safety of cars. Point I'm trying to say though is that don't think that just countries are rolling over and playing dead. They're resisting in their own ways, and they're fighting for the interests of their own countries. But in my point of view, and all of these things that we've talked about several times, you want a situation where you have a trade relationship, which is beneficial to both sides. It's a win-win. You want to develop, like good relations to where you're not constantly fighting, and you're not constantly having to talk to some, tweeter toddler person, which is Trump. And that's what's going on. So I just wanted to share some thoughts of a different point of view that you may not have heard before. And I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.